Hey, it's Joe, and I'm back with another tutorial. This time, it's a basement tutorial, or valley, or simply open air basements. If you look at the top left-hand corner, you can actually see the bunker house. If you haven't yet seen the videos for that build, you may want to go have a look at it. And this was lastly consisted of open air basements going right down to the second lowest basement that you can go within the game. So it really is just basically rooms within rooms, and they're just basements, but we can make them look as if it was a valley. So let's get back into the game and start. The first thing to remember is that everything in The Sims 4 is actually a room. So there is no such thing as outside or inside. It's just a room within a room, or without a room, with ceilings or without ceilings and floors. Planning ahead is a good idea because it will save you a lot of redoing what you've already done. If you intersect rooms and basements included and swimming pools, etc., it often undoes what you've already done before. So it's good to have a general layout of what you want to create. So let's just start. I'm just going to put a large basement into the house. There's your large basement. Okay, now let's put something above ground. Actually, wonder if that is centered with the... Okay, let's just slap a roof on it just for reference, that we can actually see what is above ground and what isn't. As we go along, it's going to become quite confusing, so I'm going to actually color the different levels in different colors. If the game could just respond, oh, there we go. Let's get some wallpapers going. Red is going to be upstairs, so anything above ground is in red. Let's go to our lower basement. Here we go. And let's make it say green. It's got a nice vivid green here. And I'm going to give it also a green floor, so you can actually see the various levels. Let's go back to top view and go above ground. Now, in order to make in fact, I'm actually going to go down and make the basement a bit smaller, otherwise it's going to give us endless complications. For the purpose of this tutorial, we don't need any further complications then already. Let's bring that in a bit more. If you just deselect a basement, just simply go down and go back up, and the outline's there. Bring that back so it's in line. Actually, let's bring it back one step. Now, what you want to do is obviously remove the ceiling. So if you lose the basement, now it's gone, you can't see it. Go down below, select the room, and you don't get the options for the ceiling on that level. But if you go up and it's still selected, you get this yellow band that pops up. If you click on it, you can say remove ceiling. Now you've got your exposed basement. See, there you go. That's the basement we've created. The reason why I said that you should plan the shape of your basements is because as they start to intersect, they start to reform and create new rooms, and so it's important to know what shape you want beforehand. So let's say let's do something creative, and let's add something a bit more interesting to our upper basement. I'm going to be referring them to upper basement and lower basements. Let's remove those walls. Now you see it's auto creating. Sometimes it doesn't work like this, so you may need to actually delete that part of the basin manually. Let's pick up the wall color and just tile everything. Pick up the floor. Now we've got an unusual shaped basement. It's mostly to give it a more natural feel. I'm not going to go into too much detail. You can obviously create, but now you already can see the problem that exists, because now we have a ceiling over part of that basement. What we have to do is go in, say remove ceiling. Now we've got one basement downstairs with no ceiling. Let's add another section in just for kicks to make it a little bit more interesting. Now, if you create the basement above, just simply grab it, hold it, and move down into the basement level. If you stretch the walls, you can then, the game will just behave, you can get it to become all one room. So if you select it, the entire basement is now one room. If you go above, you can see it's all cut out, and any alterations that you sort of make to these walls will now take that shape. So let's plan a sub-basement. Let's go down. It's difficult to plan the sub-basement because you can't always see it. So you don't know what's above and what's below. So sometimes it's useful. The trick is to go to the basement just above. So this is the lower basement. This would be the lower basement. This is the upper basement. Select your basement tool. This is going to place this basement below the upper basement. So let's just create a shape like that. Now if you go below, there we go. But before you start removing ceilings and that, if you still want to do some more work to it, I suggest now is the good time to do it. Let's say you want to create some shapes to it. Okay. That's going to be your lower basement. You can also do some diagonal walls. Let's add some more interest to the basement. And connect it. Now what we've got, if you go upstairs, you still got a solid floor, but downstairs you've got now more or less your final shape. Remember that you will have to recreate the steps that we're going to do now if you make changes and you get bits of flooring or ceiling appearing that you cannot remove. So what we need to do now is connect these rooms together like that. These rooms, of course, are a lot more difficult to connect, but what you can do is remove the walls, and that often, just grab that, it'll often join the rooms together. If you remove the walls, it does that. Oops, we forgot to take that one up to there. So now we've actually got one solid basement. Don't click on remove floor because you'll get this horrible earthen floor. If you go up, we still can't see the basement, the level below. Okay, so if we select we're now on the lower basement. If you select it, go up to the upper basement, we get that yellow ceiling line. If we say remove ceiling, the ceiling has been removed, but we've still got the floor here. So what we do is, this is why I said to plan your lower basement first, copy it, and then move above ground and put it here. Now we remove the floor of this room. What we've actually done is we've put a room within a room. So of course this looks terrible because we've got the existing walls in a double story. So what we need to now do is start removing the walls. It's a bit of a tedious process, but this is the only way I know how to do it. Perhaps there's an easier way, but I don't know one, so this is how I do it. So once you've removed all the walls, you actually have a perfect cutout in the, if you unselect it, unselect everything, you've now got, oops, we've still got one more wall there. Unselect it. We've now got a perfect cutout below and above ground. If we go right up to the top level, you can see, of course, every time you create and change rooms and merge rooms, you often lose the finishes. So I'm going to just do this because I want it to be clear that this is the lower floor. Let's make it in a bright yellow. So it's easier to see. You see now you can actually see which ones are which. Let me also do the bottom floor in yellow. There we go. So we've got a green floor with the green upper basement. We've got a yellow floor with the yellow lower basement. And this is how you create your basements. Obviously, since it's all blocky, this is why I created a couple of angular shapes for you to see what can actually be done. Behind the grid, it looks a little bit more natural. This is from above. You can see you're now seeing your ground plane. That was your upper basement floor and your lower basement floor. This is how you create open air rooms that look similar to, let's zoom out, that. If you look at again at the concrete bunker house, you see that's actually the upper basement, and this down here is the lower basement. Go check that tutorial out the speed build if you want to see how that was done. So this is basically how, let's just get the camera angled. If we go all the way up, you can actually see there's your house on the ground. You would go up a few more floors if you wanted to. That's your ground plane, and that's now your basement complete. If you select them, you can make alterations to them. Let's just zoom in so we can see. You can actually change the shapes, but look what happens. You get these earthen floors, which represent sort of rock or packed soil, and you lose because your top room is still there. Now, usually you can simply, because it's one big room, you can pull that back, and you've now got a perfect finish again. If you want to create a room in here but not connected, you'd have to repeat the process. You'd have to go down. Let's do one to show as an example. We've got, let's bring this wall out a bit to give us a bit of space. Okay, let's say I want to put a room in here. Go down, grab your basement, pull it a little bit. Now if we go above, we can say remove ceiling, because remember we are actually selecting the lower basement room, so nothing happens. If we go downstairs, again we grab that, we copy it, go back up to the top and put it exactly over that. Let's click in there and remove the floor. Now you see what's happened. We've got a double volume floor inside the room. This is why I was saying to you that the Sims 4 is actually rooms. Everything's a room, whether it's outside or inside, above ground or below ground, or even a swimming pool, which I'll show you just now. They're all rooms. Okay, now you've got your perfect cut. If we select that, there you go. So now you've got two basements. If you wanted to have that basement closed, you wouldn't have done the step that I did to open it up. Now let's create a really bizarre looking swimming pool just to show you what can be done. You've probably seen these before but wondered how they were done. Again, because a swimming pool is nothing more than a room, you simply treat it like a room. So let's just grab a square pool. But now, when you try and place the pool, it starts going a little bit nuts. So if you want even if you're up on the top level, it still wants to place it on the sub-basement, on the basement. You actually cannot put a swimming pool on the lower level, on the lower basement, because it's out of the game's playable regions. So you've only got 2 floors that go down. Because the swimming pool is actually a room, it can only be placed on the upper level. I'll put one here. I'll actually do 2 swimming pools to give you an idea. Now you've actually got a swimming pool that is, this is one of the reasons why you can actually stretch the swimming pools in this way, is because it actually is just another room. See, if you go down into the lower basement, you actually see there's what's left of our little room that we created, and the other room, which is actually the swimming pool. So you can't put that lower because you cannot actually go down any lower. Going back up. So that's a normal basement pool. So that's how you actually get the pool in your basement. But if you want to create a floating pool, you need to start your pool, let's grab the tool again, on ground level. Let's say we wanted, let's first adjust the basement level for dramatic effect. Let's pull that back and pull this back. Okay, now we've got a slightly bigger basement, and we're going to put in fact, let's go back another 2 steps. See that there's that earthen floor because the top room doesn't match the bottom floor, the bottom basement, so it doesn't cut out the hole. Sometimes it snaps and sometimes it doesn't. It really takes. There we go. I actually managed to place the pool. You see, it's actually floating. And we've actually got a floating pool, and that's how these floating pools are actually created. Because again, it's just a room. So if we make this pool wider, now we can stretch it across. Just grab that arrow, stretch it right across, and connect here. And we've got a floating pool. That's how you do it. You can stretch it again because it's actually a basement. You can actually stretch it further into the ground. You can literally pretty much make any shape you like, but this was just to show you the effect. And because it's been placed inside the upper basement, it's actually picked up the wall surface. Whoops. Game does like to go nuts every now and again. It picks up the wall surface and automatically adds it. So there's your floating pool. You can create some very dramatic effects because you can literally go underneath. You can do the same thing with swimming pools on first floors, but this is all a basement tutorial. Now, of course, this doesn't look very realistic, especially with the weird colored things that I've got. But unfortunately, we cannot use the terrain tool. If you pick the terrain tool, let's pick this one, you can paint up here, but you cannot paint down here. It's basically a room inside, and you just cannot paint in it. So the only thing you can do is you can go into your floors and pick your outdoor floors, and you can then, of course, put in these really awful floors. The best bet here really is to use custom flooring that you've downloaded from somewhere, because these just don't look very realistic. But for the purpose of this game, we'll go with that. Either go with rock walls, perhaps a sort of a dungeon look. Just tile everything. If you're looking for sort of Lara Croft tomb effect, then that will give it to you. This is an alternative. Again, not very realistic. You'd probably be better off looking for custom content on the internet. So you could paint your basements in brown color, but it's still not particularly realistic. What really brings realism to your basements, like I did with the concrete bunker, is you start to add in things like plants. You can place trees and so forth in the basement. So as soon as you start to place trees in there, you start to break up the hard angular edges of the terrain. The rocks are a wonderful feature for to sort of bring them up. You can place them in corners and that to really soften up the edges. Because I think we're quite close to the edge of the property, so that's why we're battling to place the rocks there. And you would build up your entire basement like that. If you were going for you may need to put, I often have move objects cheat on, which allows me to place these objects into the basement and sort of sticking out the other side where you don't see, but you get a better finish on the inside. Look a bit better. Then the next thing is you can hang plants. Pick a whole lot of hanging plants. Now you definitely need cheat mode, move objects on for that. And I don't have it enabled. Okay, there we go. So this is how you would start building your basements. Another trick that you can do is you can use the pre-built game items. Let's go to top view and create almost ledges that are above ground to give you even overlap slightly. When you look at it in 3D, let's move that to here. You can create a second level of realism. This is how you build up layers that it almost looks a bit like Minecraft before before you actually finish it and start softening up all the walls. And that's why this is really just a tutorial how to create those basements. You can also, of course, place handrails on these things, probably for safety reasons. You might want to do that. You can place any kind of railing on it, but some just look ridiculous. Either use just simple trims or actually use proper railings. And then, of course, when you blend them in, this is a more of an industrial look, which is what I did with the concrete bunker. I use this very industrial. And that actually gives you a sense of realism, actually bringing the top down. I should stop doing that. It's so annoying when the game just goes a bit bonkers. And this is essentially how, oh goodness, that's a magic fence, that. This is how you create your sub-basements, but basically they're open air, and the light will go through and they will be lit up, and you get the day's lighting effects traveling down into your basement. As you can see, completely open air, but it's still room, so you need to place staircases. Of course, because otherwise some simply cannot get down there. So you need to place staircases to every single place that they can reach, or it just won't be accessible. And there you go. I also suggest using more than one staircase so that there's actually less traffic jams. It's actually going to make an odd shape here. There you have it. That's how to create open air basements. There's what we did on the lower basement, showing the swimming pool, the upper level basement, and then ground level, and of course your roof. You can also move swimming pools, but when you move them, that's provided it even allows you to move it. When you do move them, and if you stretch the swimming pool, you will get this weird block of floating ground. But if you do move them, it will alter the room. Well, let's just make it smaller. It's just not allowing me to place it here. If you were to place it here, it will now alter this room when you remove the swimming pool, just like I did here. If you now take this out and you put it, say, here, it will now leave the shape as a in all intents and purposes, it's actually a cutout. But because we are treating this as a cutout, it's actually an extension of the existing ground. So that's what happens. Again, if you pull the swimming pool, it will go back into place and assume the finishes. But that one will remain. You could, of course, move it back. And because we've got one room, it's become like a virtual room. It's keeping the floor and the openings of the basement. That's how you build things in the basement. Of course, go and make something much prettier than this and use custom floors so we don't have this fake grass look and horrible brown walls. But this is how you create open air basements. If you enjoyed this video, won't you give it a thumbs up? It helps me to grow my channel, but more than that, it also tells other viewers that this is good material and that they should watch it. If you haven't subscribed yet, well, what are you waiting for? Click the bell icon and turn on notifications. That way, when I release new content, you'll be the first to know. Thanks so much for watching this tutorial, and I hope it was useful.